guys, it's Anthony. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to go over some car sales objections, specifically number one of what I call the fundamental three. The fundamental three, whether you've been in the business for a week, a month, or 100 years, are the three same objections you're probably going to hear over and over again. Now, let me preface this by saying in previous videos and in future videos, we're going to discuss the difference between excuses and objections. I believe that in most cases, they're just excuses when we hear them. They're not real objections. And to me, the customer's guilty until proven innocent. You have to prove to me that's a real objection. In most cases, they're excuses. But whether or not, that's semantics. For the spirit of this video, we're going to call them objections. And they say these objections and they use these objections in most cases because there's something unspoken about the vehicle or the deal that they're not happy with. They're not 100% on board with, obviously. And the customer's not trained to do the back and forth. They're not really trained to negotiate like we are. They have a few, plays in their playbook, and that's what I call the fundamental three. And, a lot of times if the customer really likes you, it could actually hurt you when it comes to an unspoken objection. They don't know how to tell you that something's wrong. They feel bad because they feel like they've wasted your time, or, even if their ego gets in the way sometimes, they don't want to tell you they can't afford it, or maybe they change their mind. So all of these things are happening, and all the customer wants to do is get out of that uncomfortable situation, or they don't really know how to negotiate. So they use one of the fundamental three as an excuse to get them out of that situation. So we're going to go over number one of the fundamental three today. In this video, we're going to go over 2 and 3 in future videos. But the number one of the fundamental three, and it's in no particular order, but this is one you've definitely heard before if you've been in the business for a little bit, or a billion times if you've been in the business for a lot of bit. Number one is, I need to think about it, right? I need to think about it. So let's usually a salesperson will say, well, what do you need to think about? And the customer is going to say, I just want to go home and think about it. So at that point, now you don't know what to say, right? So the customer says, I need to think about it. The average salesperson says, well, what do you need to think about? And then the customer says, I just got to go home and think about it. And now you're out of word tracks. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to overcome the objection. But you have to always make the best attempt to isolate the objection. Isolating the objection is the best way to overcome the objection. If it's just a blanket objection, if it's just a blanket statement, you don't really know where to go. So you have to isolate it. You have to break it down into itty-bitty pieces. And sometimes you have to unpack it and literally overcome multiple objections in a blanket objection like that. I need to think about it. It could be a number of things, but I want to isolate the objection. So let's say the customer's name was John, right? And he said to me, Anthony, you've been great, but I just got to go home and think about it. So now I need to isolate the objection. So I'm going to say to John, totally understand the way you feel. I do that because I agree with John. John, totally get it. John, totally get that you need to think about it. Absolutely, John. I say things like that because John knows he's saying something to me that I don't want to hear. And, human instinct is that if you do something towards somebody that they're not going to like, you're probably expecting them to retaliate. So John expects me to be combative. He expects me to be confrontational or pushy. When I say I totally understand, or absolutely, John, or I totally get it, or definitely, John, when I say things like that, John's wall now goes down because he's putting it up. He's ready to play defense. And he gets shocked and a little bit refreshed by me because now I'm empathetic, right? And a great salesperson needs to have ego and empathy. Ego is confidence and empathy is understanding. So, John, totally understand the way you feel. Now I need to isolate the objection. So then I say to John, when you say you need to think about it, do you need to think about the car or the money? The car or the money? I'm isolating the objection. So if John says the car, he's uncertain about the car, that's probably worst case scenario for us because now we've been negotiating and spending all this time on the wrong vehicle. You want to land on the right vehicle out on the lot, but that's okay. I'd rather him say it now than leave, right? So if he says the car, I'm then going to say to John, okay, John, now when you say the vehicle, you need to think about the vehicle. Let me ask you this. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect for you and your household, you and your family, 10 meaning it checks all the boxes. On a scale of 1 to 10, John, 10 being perfect, what would you rate the vehicle? Now, John's obviously going to say something lower than 10 because if not, he wouldn't say he needs to think about the car. So he's going to say maybe an 8 or a 9 or 7. I'm going to follow up. After I ask John on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, what would you rate the vehicle? He says 7, he says 6, he says any number less than 10. I'm then going to say, okay, John, let me ask you this. What would make it a 10? What would make the vehicle a 10? Now, John's going to tell me exactly what's not perfect about the vehicle. So that if John says, I wish I had a sunroof, I would say, okay, John, let me ask you this. If we were able to get you the same vehicle, but with the sunroof, would that make it a 10? Yeah, that would make it a 10. Okay, great. And if we could do that, would you leave today with the vehicle? Now I go in and try to close John. Now, John may say, well, wouldn't that be more money or the payment's going to be higher? Don't worry about it, John. We're going to address that and we'll make it, we'll find a way to make a deal happen for you. But most importantly, we have to make sure you're on the right car. If you're not looking at the right vehicle, if you're not test driving the right vehicle, if we're not working at a deal on the right vehicle, the numbers could never make sense. Leave that up to me. I want to make sure that we found the perfect car for you, right? So you want to ask John, is it the car or is it the money, right? He needs to think about it. You agree with him? John, is it the car or is it the money? If he says car, you ask him on a scale of 1 to 10, what he would rate the vehicle. Anything less than 10, you ask him what would make it a 10, and he will tell you exactly what the perfect car is for him. So now, let's say John says it's the money. All right, it's the money. It's the money. Now you need to isolate the objection. So I say, John, totally understand the way you feel. Totally understand the way you feel, right? I agree with him. When you say the money, do you mean the down payment or the monthly payment? Do you mean the down payment or the monthly payment? So if he says the down payment, let's say he says, the $5,000, it's a little tough for me. I'm going to go and grab what I call a micro commitment. He just said no to the down payment. Now I need a yes, right? So I'm going to say, okay, John, but the $575, that works for you, right? I need him to say yes to the payment. He said no to something. I need him to at least say yes to the payment. I got to at least put that piece of the puzzle together for us, right? Now, we're obviously going to raise that payment because we're going to have to decrease down payment money to make it comfortable for John. But I at least want to raise my baseline. I want to get a commitment somewhere. Right now, I have no commitment. Or let's say John's first pencil to us, which is exactly what it is when the customer says, oh, I need to be $300 a month. That's their first pencil. He may have said that early on in the process. I need to now raise and get a commitment at that higher payment of, say, $575. So if he says no to down payment, I need him to say yes to monthly payment. Now, let's say he says, I could do the $5,000 down, but the $575, that's just a little too high for me. All right, so a novice salesperson would then probably say to John, well, John, where are you looking to be? I'll never say that. You'll never hear me say that, right? So if he says the down payment's too high, right? If the $5,000 is too high, or if he says the $575 is too high, I'm going to say this 100% of the time. If it's the down payment, $5,000 is too high, I'm going to say to John, let me ask you this. How close to the $5,000 could you get? If the payment's too high of $575, John, let me ask you this. How close to the $575 could you get? I ask that because I don't want to have to work towards John's fictitious number, some made-up number that he could just throw anything at me. If I say, where are you looking to be? And this is even early on the process. Where are you looking to be? I want to be $200 a month. Now I got a lot of work to do. It's probably impossible, right? But if I ask him how close to my number he can get, I'm positioning it as if he's working towards our number. We're not working towards his. We maintain leverage. And let's be honest, our numbers are backed by facts. They're backed by the sale price of the car. They're backed by the trade-in. They're backed by the incentives on the new car. They're backed by whether they're leasing or financing or the interest rate or credit score. Like all of these things, it's actually real. He could just make up a number and now we're on a fool's errand. So you'll never hear me say, where are you looking to be? So just to break it down again, and I actually drew it out on my iPad for you. It's a little bit of a filter tree. I'll show you that right now. This will give you a representation of what it looks like. So it'll look like this. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry about that. So customer says they need to think about it. You're going to ask them, do they have to think about the car or the money? If they say the car, you're going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate the vehicle? If they say anything less than 10, which they will because they wouldn't be thinking about the car if it was perfect, you ask what would make it a 10. Need to think about it. If they say the car or the money, if they say the money, you're going to say, okay, now when you say the money that you need to think about, do you mean the down payment or the monthly payment? Whatever one they pick, go and get the commitment for the other one. So if they say the down payment's too much, get a commitment on the monthly payment. If they say the monthly payment's too much, get a commitment on the down payment, start to raise that baseline for where our commitment is. Then, whatever one they said they needed to think about, you do not ask them where they're looking to be. You ask them how close to that number could they get. That allows you to maintain leverage. That allows the whole perception of the transaction to be them working towards our real numbers, not us working towards their fake numbers. So need to think about it, right? We're going to hear it all the time, but it's really only two things. It's the car or the money. And we have to isolate what that objection is. If it's the car, find out what they rate the vehicle on a scale of 1 to 10. If it's less than 10, which it will be, find out what makes it a 10. Find out which vehicle is perfect for them. And if it's the money, find out if it's a down payment or monthly payment. Don't ever get into price because we want to keep that out of the equation. We want to focus on down payment and monthly payment. When we start diving into sale price, that's how we lose gross profit. And at the end of the day, the sale price doesn't matter. It all comes down to the monthly payment. So I need to think about it. That's one of the fundamental 3. We're going to go over 2 and 3 in future videos. I'm sure you've heard it before. You're definitely going to hear it again. And now you're able to overcome it. Hey, my friend, thank you for watching. And if you want to see videos just like this one, please like and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate the love and support. And don't forget, leave some comments down below. I'm looking forward to all of your interaction and feedback, and I can't wait to bring you more videos just like this one. Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.